total BS.
Yeah, we don't want nobody telling us what to do. We don't want nobody pushing us around.
That's right, total behavioural science. Gotcha. Peter Bragg and Jeff Payne are from Behaviour Works Australia, part of the Monash Sustainable Development Institute, and are here to talk behavioural science once again. Welcome back to Brekkie Boys. Always great to have you.
Morning, Sammy.
Good morning, Peter, down the line.
Good morning, Sammy. Good morning, Sammy.
Where does this find you? Are you fleeing the country? What's going on?
I'm in sunny Canberra where the temperature is -0.9, feels like -5.
Well, let me tell you, if you're in Canberra, let's say you're flying somewhere after that and you go to the airport, Peter, and there's a vending machine and it's extortionate. I mean, would you pay that money, Peter?
Well, it would depend how hungry I am, Sammy, because my brain and your brain and possibly Jeff's brain, we've already made a bunch of decisions today. We've had to decide what to wear. We've had to decide, you've got to press lots of buttons on the radio. And so if there's any opportunity that we can not use energy, we will grab it with both hands. And that's called status quo bias, otherwise known as the lazy tax.
That's right, listeners. We're talking lazy tax today.
I should point out, of course, it's not actually a tax. It's just the penalty you get.
You're sounding suspiciously like Julia Gillard now.
Well, it has... A few people have said, look, is it a tax? Is it lazy? Are we that lazy? We're just busy. We're making decisions. It's not really a tax. It's just the penalty you get for not shopping around.
But so you're saying, Peter, that like water finding the lowest level, that we'll always revert to the easiest sort of action we can take?
I've never thought about it in those terms, Sammy, but the easiest decision or the default, it's also known as default bias, is not necessarily the best decision. And I'll tell you my personal non-favourite, the little box that is always pre-ticked when you fill in an online form, and next to that box they have the words, yes, I would like to receive promotional emails. And it's always next to the other boxes that are important, like the terms and conditions. Now, most people just go, right, I've got to tick all those boxes, I want to join this thing, and next thing you know, emails.
So it's easy not to change. And we've got this default bias, which is status quo. Let's not change.
We all discovered this in real time in Victoria when we filled out our energy compare forms to get our $250. Listeners, if you haven't done it, you must. It's genuinely the easiest $250 you will ever make. Just go online, upload a power bill, and you'll get that from the government. But that was an attempt to shake people out of their apathy, because so many of us stay on, for example, power plans, let alone phone plans, because the hassle of changing is just too great, Jeff.
Absolutely. So it's car insurance, home insurance, phone plans, all of that sort of stuff. Every year we think, we'll set and forget, we'll roll it over. And of course, for those companies, it's much cheaper for them. They make much more profit by going for new customers than looking after their old customers, which means that the prices creep up over time, and that is the tax that we get for not shopping around.
And they would perhaps do calculations that they know they'll lose some people from that, but the ones they retain are worth more to them?
Absolutely. So what they're trying to do is grab more and crank that price up just a little bit. And, of course, even companies sometimes try and change our behaviour. There is a brand of cola that tried to change its recipe in the 80s, turned out to be a huge disaster. People did not want to change, and they had to go back and reissue the old recipe.
And, Peter, this also comes back into not just consumer purchases in the traditional sense, but even things like medical appointments, I understand.
Well, yeah, so you can use it for good. So you mentioned electricity, and there are research studies that show that consumers remain with their default provider, just as Jeff was saying, even when they can save, 5%, which is quite a lot with electricity prices these days. But there's also been an experiment. You can use this for good, Sammy. Mm-hmm. There was an experiment that showed if I send Jeff a letter and it says, Jeff, your 4th vaccine booster has been scheduled for 1 o'clock on Thursday, he is more likely to go to the appointment than if I send him a letter saying, here's the number to ring to make a vaccine appointment. So we can default into good stuff that, for societal good, for health purposes and other things. So we can use, as with all of these behavioural phenomena, we can use them to do good things in the world as well.
Also, I don't like Peter telling me what to do, so the text is better than that.
I'm chatting to Jeff Payne and Peter Bragg from Behaviour Works Australia. They are our resident behavioural experts. So we're talking about the so-called lazy tax today. That's the tendency for us to just go with the flow and do the easiest thing. I tell you what, I've got a number of... I use my inbox as my to-do list. And in my inbox, I've probably got 3 separate emails saying, call this company, call that company. And it's taken some of those like 2 months old because I know it's going to be a rigmarole to call them. I know I'm going to be put on hold. But all those things would save me money. They're things I need to address. But this is probably a prime example, Jeff.
That's exactly right. So we find it difficult to change because we have to go through the process of uploading the form, giving a credit card number, all of that sort of stuff. And they sometimes make it very difficult to get out. Like many of us will know that for our streaming services, man, it's easy to get in. They welcome you in. But if you don't want to subscribe anymore, you've got to click through, find the box, go down the list, check the menu. They make it getting out a lot harder. It's like getting out of IKEA. It's much harder to get out.
And Peter, this can work to our advantage, I can't, because I know with things like newspaper subscriptions, all it takes is a call to say that you want to leave, and suddenly, or online, you're offered all sorts of 3-month discounts.
Yeah, that's right. I sometimes do that myself, Sammy. I say, look, I've seen a sticker on the front of the paper saying there's a special offer, and I'm an existing customer. So I think one way to think about it, if you think about your emails in your email box, and we don't all have the benefit of the $250 Vic Energy Compare, but that's the easiest money you'll ever make. But you've got to think about it like a job, right? So you get paid for doing this, Sammy. If you go to those emails and make those phone calls, you'll get paid. You'll get paid over sort of a longer period than the Vic Energy Compare $250. But it is kind of like a job, and it is a bit of a chore. It's a bit of a hassle, but it does have a payoff, either financially or, in health things. Often when you have checkup appointments, you might say, well, let's just make my next checkup appointment now. Make your next appointment at the dentist now.
Yeah.
So those sort of things you can default yourself in.
So there was an inquiry held in 2013 about something that they called the Australian tax, which is basically a penalty this country has simply by being Australian.
What do you mean?
That we pay more.
For what?
For stuff.
Why?
Because, well, originally they said it's the distance, it has to be shipped. And then in 2013, someone said, well, software doesn't have to be shipped. It just comes down the internet. And we were paying more.
And it's like Apple products as well and stuff like that?
So these were big, electronic products and software and all that sort of stuff. And they held an inquiry to say, well, hang on, what is this? And they came up with the name, the Australian tax, because we got used to paying for it.
Can I tell you both, this is perhaps brings the best and worst elements of this behaviour into one, because, there are some telecommunication companies in Australia that are known for great coverage.
Yes.
And others that are less so. And traditionally the lesser ones are cheaper.
Yeah.
At some point a year or two ago, we were both on a lazy tax for great coverage, which was largely not needed with our inner city lifestyles. Yeah. I opted down, made the effort, saved hundreds of dollars by switching to a plan. But my wife, and I was sort of doing all the stuff for us, I kept her on the higher tier. So between us, we've always got coverage, but we still saved a good amount of money. Is that a good in-between lazy tax?
That is smart, okay, because you're working the system.
I can hotspot off her phone.
As a team, you can work off each other's phones. You know you've got coverage. That is the cooperation we're talking about.
Well, the thing is, Sammy, if you know about it, so the thing is, some people know about this behavioural science and they'll use it to make money. But if we know about it, we can use it to get that money back. So really the takeaway from this is that if you just know about this thing called the lazy tax, which isn't a tax or default bias, next time you get a bill or a cheerful renewal notice, you've just got to take a moment and think, okay, let's get to work here and earn some money.
Wonderful advice. Boys, it is always great to chat, and thank you. I reckon hopefully some listeners right now, as they go about the day or next time they see a bill, they'll just remember that little default bias and hopefully save a few dollars. Have a wonderful day, both of you, and special shout out, Jeff Payne, for your wonderful work in the Neighbours finale.
Thank
and
you,
Peter
Sammy.
Bragg, you enjoy the Capitol up there.
I will do. Thanks, Sammy.
Stay warm.
Cheers.
Peter Bragg and Jeff Payne there from Behaviour Works Australia.